War Rapport family, Auburn family, it's your guy Mike G here with my guy Ike Jones, and we got the most special guest for you guys today. Athletic Director for Auburn University, Alan Greene. Alan, thanks for joining us, man.
Appreciate it, Mike. Glad to be here with you and Isaac.
So, Alan, I want to kick the interview off by you letting fans know a little bit about you. You came to Auburn. You know, you're the new head honcho in charge of athletics, of all athletics. Can you tell us about the decision to take the job as athletic director at Auburn and what that's been like with you for you since you made that decision?
Yeah, Mike, it's been awesome. Number one, I guess what attracted me to Auburn, and this I don't think that people would guess, right? It wasn't the SEC, it wasn't big time college athletics, but it was the ability to have a greater platform to inspire more. And the value system of Auburn and my value system are in complete alignment. When you think about the Auburn Creed, and you think about what an Auburn man or an Auburn woman is, it became really apparent to me that I'm that person also. And I know it's fascinating when I think about being the first Black AD, being the first AD at Auburn who has not have Auburn ties, didn't go to school at Auburn and play for Auburn, although I have worked in the Southeastern Conference before. But I think that those things are less relevant than alignment and then recognizing, understanding, believing in the value system that exists. And I remember spending, the first several months trying to figure out how to prove to people that I was an Auburn man. And I've shared this publicly, and I just said, after a while, I realized I always have been. I just didn't know it until I got here. So I'm incredibly humbled and honored to be here representing Auburn University, to represent this athletics department, and to help our coaches and our student athletes find a way to be better and more impactful than they ever thought that they could.
Well, Alan, I think that you've done a pretty good job. From the outside looking in, of course, we as fans don't really know the depth of what all goes into it. But can you talk to us a little bit about kind of what the life of the Auburn athletic director is like, and kind of how have you enjoyed the job so far? Just tell us a little bit about that.
So people ask, what's the best part of your job and the worst part of your job? Right. And I tell people the worst part of my job is pushing papers. I hate being in the office. I hate being at my desk. I don't like being in the office behind the door, if you will. I'd much rather be out in the field, literally and figuratively. So anytime I get a chance to spend with our student athletes, that is the most rewarding experience. That's why I got into this industry, and that's the most fulfilling aspect of the job. Anytime you get a chance to experience or have a small impact on a student athlete's growth and their development, it's like seeing my own kids achieve something, right? When you work so hard toward it. I will also say that the Auburn family has been more welcoming and more encouraging than I ever would have anticipated. I was at the grocery store, not the grocery store. I was at Ace Hardware over the weekend getting something for the big green egg, and I ran in. Someone stopped me and said hello, and aren't you the athletic director? I said yes. I asked the lady what her name was, and she said, well, you meet so many people. Why do you care what my name is? And I said, well, I'd like to know who I'm talking to. Right, you know me, but I don't know you.
Right.
And Miss K is who she was. And we had a really good conversation about, Auburn and her passion for Auburn, her appreciation for the work that our team does. And it's engagements like that really make what we do worth it. Because I can guarantee you, right, it's not all roses. These jobs are hard, and there's lots of demand on our time and of our mind. The situations and the circumstances that we deal with are incredibly complicated and complex, and sometimes there's no right answers to what we do. And we do the best we can with the information that we have, and no matter what, try to make sure that we're making decisions that are going to put Auburn in the best position possible.
Alan, I want to transition a little bit. So you had the honor of being the athletic director during a global pandemic. Can
the
you
honor. I appreciate that.
the
Yeah.
honor, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because leading the university athletics department through that time, I know had to be difficult. There were a lot of decisions that had to be made about player safety. Some players opted out of the season. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like this last season and what really was an abnormal year? We had an all SEC schedule in football, and you guys had to do some, out of the box things to help protect athletes and play football, this last fall. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I will tell you, a year plus ago, we were trying to figure out just how to get student athletes back to campus. Right, that was kind of number one, and students back to campus, let alone playing sport. And I know you mentioned football, which is obviously the crown jewel of our athletics department. But soccer actually plays, the other football plays before the gridiron football. And we also have volleyball and cross country. And so thinking about, okay, how do we manage the largest team on our campus and the most visible team of our football program? But yet we also know that we have people who are going to be running. We have student athletes who are going to be kicking a soccer ball. We have student athletes who are going to be passing a volleyball. And where's their overlap between how we manage football and how we manage those other sports? And then we talk about the SEC is grueling enough. The SEC West is the most difficult division in college football. And when you play 10 SEC games, like that wears on you. And so the protocols to return safely, in my opinion, had an impact on us in particular because we were a young team. And this, I think, goes for any of our student athletes in our programs, but I also think around the country. When you don't have a chance to prepare adequately for a season, and again, everyone was in the same situation by and large, but if you have new people on your teams and you don't have that family, that time for family engagement, that time for bonding, because you're in pods or you have to stay socially distanced, that has an impact. And I think what we saw was those teams who were more mature, who played together for an extra year or 2 years, had a better success rate. And those teams who didn't, they suffered. And many of our teams this past year were young and inexperienced, if you will. They didn't have the camaraderie that a lot of some of our previous teams have had. And we noticed that in the outcomes. And so as we move forward into this year, we've taken a much more strategic approach to making sure that our coaches are engaging with our student athletes. Our student athletes are engaging with one another. And albeit it may be socially distanced, how can we figure out how to be more connected? Because at the end of the day, X's and O's will get you but so far, but the Jills and Joes is what carries you through. And we've got to make sure that we remain committed to making sure our Jills and Joes are connected, love one another, and are ready to fight for one another.
So you're navigating through the pandemic time. You talk about the crown jewel of the athletic department. Everybody knows that football is the big boy, especially in SEC and down here in this culture. But season ends and you've got the arduous task of dealing with what happens with the football program. We're going to jump straight into this big boy right here. Sure. You had to make a decision to cut ties with the previous football coach. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of what that process was like of getting through that entire thing and making the decision, it's time for us to go in a different direction?
Sure. Yeah, so it is. It's a beast, right, to say the least. And let me walk you back, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago and watching Auburn from afar. And it was very clear as I evaluated different athletic departments that the Auburn football job is one of the most demanding in the country. I would say that and probably LSU, right, because the schedules are so tough and because the expectations are so high. I will also say, just broadly speaking, right, this isn't an Auburn deal, this is an everybody deal, is we all have much higher expectations than are realistic. And if you go back and look at various programs, by and large, their win percentage doesn't change. Doesn't matter who the coach is. But what does change is hope. And when we went through the season and we evaluated the entire body of work, there was a recognition that there wasn't the type of hope that was needed. And so there was an incredibly difficult decision, because Gus and I over the past 3 years formed an incredibly close relationship. I respect the heck out of him. We worked through a lot of challenges together, try to help put the program in a spot to be successful. And there always comes a point in time where it is time to move on. And whether you like it or not, or want to have to deal with it or don't, you have to wrestle with these big time decisions. And I want to give credit to, there's people in our department, there's people part of our university, our fan base, our donors. I receive a lot of feedback, a lot of input, and we have to make decisions. And I say we, as the athletic director, right, it falls on my lap, but we are a part of a larger institution. And as football goes, so does our department, and so does our university. And so when it comes to changing out a football coach here at Auburn, it's a collective decision. And we had lots of dialogue about it and figured, it is the most appropriate thing to do to find new leadership. And that's a part of the job that we sign up for, as challenging as those times are.
Alan, you said something that I want to expound upon a little bit, in that, you felt like there wasn't the hope, right, that you guys were looking for there. And as a fan who's invested a lot of emotions into Auburn football on Saturdays over the years, I can confirm that, right? We go in as fans with a lot of hope every year, hoping that we're going to be here, that the product on the field will match our emotional investment into watching what gets put on the field. So you also said that, it's a collective decision, right? Where, a lot of talks gets had because you paid $21 million to sever ties with Gus. And then moving forward, I want to talk about the decision to hire his successor, right? Now, there were a lot of names being thrown around. There was a lot of speculation about who the next guy was going to be. From a fan perspective, a lot of people felt like, if you're going to pay a buyout like that, you need to go and get somebody high profile to replace him. And you went a different direction in hiring Brian Harsin. And he wasn't on anybody's list. He comes in, and then we start to look at his track record, and it's like, wait, this guy can develop players, and he's got a good track record with development. Can you talk about the decision to hire Brian Harsin as the next head football coach at Auburn University?
It's interesting. One of the things that we as leaders have to do is remain disciplined and stick to one's core values. And so while there's lots of chatter about who the next football coach was going to be, and people expressing their thoughts and opinions on why this person would be better than this person and that person better than that person, we also have to understand that it's not a zero-sum game. And so just because, you want Isaac to be our next head coach, Isaac doesn't necessarily want to be our next head coach. Right. And you have to figure those things out as you go down the line. Auburn is a fantastic job. It's a hard one. It's not made. Everyone is not made for that job. So, and just because, Mike, you or Isaac, you are great at one particular school, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be great at this school. And we as leaders have to be able to distill some of those things and characteristics of what makes someone successful or why someone is successful at a particular institution. Because each institution has its own unique set of circumstances. Some of it is location. Some of it is enrollment. Some of it is whatever. Like there's lots of different things, and trying to figure out what those things are that makes someone special at a particular place. That's a part of the art that we go through. It's not a science. And I can guarantee you, right, it's great to look at someone's record at a previous institution and say, well, if they won 10 games or 11 games at school X, that's going to translate at our school. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
It just simply doesn't. And so we had to figure out, okay, what is unique to Auburn, and how are we going to find someone who can take advantage of the uniquenesses here at Auburn? What really gave a lot of insight was having conversations with our existing student athletes. So having an understanding of what's in the locker room, what's that sense and that feeling, and what are they looking for, right? Because at the end of the day, you can make a hire, right? And everyone has different philosophies. You can go for the splash hire, the big name, pay a lot of money, win the press conference, but not win the locker room. That's an approach. And some people take that approach. And and it works for some and doesn't work for others. And after just, taking a step back and just understanding our locker room, hearing from our fan base, it was really, really important that the next coach came in and won the locker room. And Harsin was able to do that. And through our conversations, it was very, very clear that he has a particular standard that needs to be met. And if it's not met, then you don't need to be a part of the program. And he commands respect and attention right away. I love the way he is able to articulate very clearly, very succinctly, here's what his vision is, here's what the standard is, here's what the expectation is. And if you're not willing to sacrifice or do what it takes to live up to this standard, then there, I'm sure, is another school that is better suited for you. And that goes for coaches, that goes for student athletes as well. That goes for anybody who's in that program. And it was very comforting to know that that's what his approach was. Like the margins for success in this league, regardless of the sport, are razor thin. And if you don't have the locker room, then it's going to be really, really difficult to be successful. Yeah. And so starting from kind of that baseline, that foundation, that's something that you can build upon. So that's part of why what made Coach Harsin so attractive to us. And we're super happy that he's here, and love over the past 6 months that what he's been able to do to this program.
So Alan, tell me a little bit about the process though of Brian Harsin's name landing on your desk, right? Were you given a list of names and then you guys started interviewing people? Was he somebody who was on your radar? Throughout your experience working in athletics, collegiate athletics, how did Brian Harsin come to the front of the pack?
Yeah, Harsin's always been on my radar, but and lots of coaches are on AD's radars, but you just have to be at the right place at the right time and have it be the right fit. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting, the football coach position at Auburn is those who qualify to fit here is very narrow. And so a lot of the names that were out on social media are the same names that we had, right? And some of it is footprint, it's criteria. When you think about what it is and who are successful in this league, and the expectations that Auburn has, you get down to a pretty narrow list, right? So that wasn't rocket science, but there's lots of other things that come into play. And so we had to sift through and distill the names, their situations, our situation. And as you kind of jostled back and forth through the search, you find people who you think, they could really do it here. And Harsin was one of those people. And there were a few others who we thought, they could do it here too. But I will guarantee you there's no perfect coach. There's no perfect candidate, right? That person doesn't exist. As much as my 9-year-old wants to believe unicorns exist, and I try to convince her that they do, I know that they don't. And so you have to understand what you're getting into when you go through these processes. And you also have to understand, at least we have to understand, and I hope that our fan base can appreciate that these things take twists and turns. And where you are on a Monday is probably not where you're going to be on a Tuesday. And on Wednesday, you might find yourself back to Monday. And so when people are talking about and stuff's posted on social or on various website platforms, the information can't be accurate because it changes so quickly. And so I don't pay attention. I don't pay attention to the message boards. I don't pay attention to the rumors. That's exactly what they are, as rumors. And if you're talking about it, you don't really know what's going on. And those who know what's going on, in theory, shouldn't be talking about it.
And listen, this is our first opportunity to just actually sit and talk. But from everybody's account, everybody's like, look, Alan Greene's his own man, right? And that's one of the things I've appreciated thus far about seeing you take the helm at Auburn is that appears to be 100% true. Is that you're going to be, uniquely qualified to do this job, which is a tough one, and we appreciate that. And it seems as if Brian Harsin is that kind of guy as well. You talk about winning the locker room. The first impressions that we got from Brian Harsin he's going to come in here and he's going to get ready to work with this program. But can you talk to us a little bit about kind of the commitment that you all have made to make sure that he's successful, whether that's from a recruiting standpoint or what kind of things does the athletic director need to do to support his head football coach, and what kind of investment are you all making to make that program successful?
So I'll start with what happens here at Auburn, and I guess my philosophy is we'll do, I won't say whatever it takes, but we'll do what we feel like we need to do to make sure that our football program is positioned for success, right? That doesn't guarantee success, but it just gets us in position. And so Coach and I will sit and talk about what he feels like is important for his program. And over the years, each coach places value on different things, right? I'm not the head coach. It's not my responsibility or my job or my place to say, you should do this, this, and this. I can offer suggestions. I can offer opinions. I can offer feedback. But I'm not going to prevent a coach from, and nor should the department prevent our football coach from doing what it is that they feel like is necessary. If we provide the resources and the opportunity for success for our football coach, and they're not able to deliver on that success, right? That's on the coach. If we hamstring our coach and tie one arm behind his back and prevent him from doing what he feels like is necessary, then we're culpable in that lack of success. And that's the strategy that we work to apply to all of our programs. Clearly, money does not grow on trees. We do not have unlimited resources. So we can't say yes to everything. But so long as the coach can articulately justify why they want to do what they want to do, even if we disagree with it, that doesn't mean that we're not going to support it. And that's I guess the important part of our leadership and our approach as we think about making sure our coaches are successful, or at least have the opportunity to be in position to be the very best that they can be.
You mentioned earlier that you guys actually took surveyed the student athletes in a sense in terms of what does this locker room need moving forward. Would the same be true of the decision to move on? Were you guys getting a sense from the players that it was time to make a change?
The term escapes me, but I guess the double standard might be the most accurate term. So no, we did not ask student athletes for their input on whether a coach should be retained or not. That is not something that we have done. It's not something that I've done. But I think as you get a sense, so broadly speaking, right, there's myself as in theory, the leader. You also have a sport administrator for football. And then you've got all these, football touches so many aspects of our department. And so an evaluation is incredibly comprehensive. And you can kind of get a sense and feel when you're in the locker room, when you're on the sidelines, when you're watching, replays of games, when you're engaging with other people who touch the football program, you kind of get a sense of how things are going. It's not 100%, it's not foolproof, but you do get a sense. And it becomes, apparent of kind of how things are going. And usually what happens when you make a change is you get confirmation from the student athletes. And it's that confirmation that allows you to move forward. And it's important, for me and my leadership and our team to make sure that if we're going to find a replacement, that we have to find someone who is going to fit into what our student athletes feel like is going to give them the best chance for success. That's that belief. That's that hope that we're talking about. And that's the team I say the team, those individuals are incredibly important to the launching of a new staff. What I find, and so this is a peek behind the curtain, what I find interesting is that some student athletes, and this isn't just with football, but some student athletes don't fully recognize when you make a head coaching change, you're swapping out basically the entire members of the entire program, right? And so it's not just the head coach that has to go, that leaves the department and leaves the family, but you talk about your coordinators, your assistant coaches, and the GAs and on down the line. And I don't know that sets in with our student athletes until after it happens, right? So if student athletes do say, we need to make a change, or we want to make a change, head coach isn't the guy or the woman. Okay, understand that you're talking about everything. You know that favorite assistant coach that you have that you like? Chances are that person's not going to be around for the rest of your time at Auburn.
Right.
Is that real? When you say you want to change at the head coach position, we have to really work hard. When I say you, right? You fan, you student athlete, you alum, you donor, what you're really saying is the entire organization needs overhaul. Mm-hmm. That's what you're really saying. And we have to, we have to take all those things into consideration when we do make these types of decisions.
All right. So you mentioned, you're not a money tree as the athletic department, right? Like you can't just walk up and write a blank check. But can you talk to us about kind of the spend that's necessary to make some of these things happen? Like we talk about the number 9, right? We 9th in the SEC in recruiting spending is what Auburn has been as of 2019. Is there a plan for how that money needs to go up, down? Like what's your responsibility in that whole process?
That's an excellent question. So we have I laughed. I'm about to say something that's kind of funny. If you were to ask a student athlete how much the department spends on their experience, they would have no idea.
Right.
They have no clue. They have no clue how much it costs for charter flights, no clue how much it costs to cater in meals while they're at a hotel, no idea on cost for charter buses. So there's a disconnect. And I would say that some of our fans in our industry there's a disconnect as well. Our budget is $150 million, and that's probably top 10, top 15 in the country. So we're very fortunate to have a lot of resources. How we choose to allocate those resources, right, is a very different conversation. And so if Coach X, right, wants more money in recruiting or wants more money in their staff pool for compensation, or wants more money in supplemental meals or more money in travel, like those are decisions that the coaches make in consultation with administration, right? We know that from a personnel perspective, it's hard to fluctuate up or down in particular. Once you go up, then you just usually you stay there. But if coaches think that investing in their staff is the most appropriate, then that means that there's money that's got to come from someplace else. It's no different than our personal lives. If you want a nice steak dinner, that's great, and you want to have that every night, that's cool. Or if you want to drive a nice car, have a nice home, that's great. But you're going to give something up, right? Because you only make but so much money. We're in the same spot. So we invest in facilities, we invest in our coaches and our staff, we invest in recruiting, we invest in nutrition, we invest in sports psychology, we invest in rehab, we invest in all these things, in academics, in tutoring services, in research. And so it's all about how we divvy up this $150 million to give us the best opportunity for success. And it's as coaches as who function as CEOs of their respective organizations, I can't be the one who sits there and tells them that it's better spent here than it is here. That's why they are the head coach, right? That's their job. My job is to help support them and help them recognize, okay, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand this, help me understand. That's the relationship that we have with our coaches, to be able to understand why they want what they want, or why they feel like they need what they need.
Everybody knows in the Southeastern Conference, recruiting is the lifeblood of football. right? So when we talk about that recruiting spend, we did some interviews with a lot of writers to talk about just what does that recruiting budget look like? Now, and it became apparent that it's a lot of travel expenses to go places, right, and to reach student athletes outside or inside, regionally or nationally. Now, during your conversations with Brian Harsin, now he's got roots in Boise, which is kind of outside his the normal SEC bounds. Was there a conversation about expanding our reach to potential athletes further west? Are we going to allocate more resources from that budget that you just talked about to help him do that? It's been apparent that we kind of need to do a little better at home, right? In state with athletes, showing them that Auburn is the right choice for them. But in lieu of that, becoming more of a national force in recruiting, a lot of people feel like is important. Did you guys talk about that at all? Is there a plan in place to recruit nationally?
You might like this answer is no, we didn't talk about it. We didn't need to talk about it, right? The expectation is that we're here to win national championships. Right. In order to do that, then you recruit the best athletes in the country and in the world. Point blank, right? Period. So we got to do what we got to do.
Awesome.
That's the shortest answer you'll ever get from me.
Oh yeah, listen, I love it, right? I think that some things don't need a lot of explanation, right? Like, yeah, we're going to go get athletes wherever they're at, right? And sell to them that Auburn is the best place for them. I love that.
All right, so yeah, I mean, we get a lot of fan questions, or we get a lot of perceptions that are out there about expectations. Listen. Auburn fans are very passionate about Auburn football, and they want to see success day one, but we understand it's a process. There's a culture change that has to happen under a new administration. And can you just talk to us a little bit about your expectations of how you want to see the program progress and what does success look like for you in year one under Brian Harsin?
That's a really good question, Isaac. All of us at the end of a game want to have more points than the other team. Right. And so that's an outcome of what happens on Sunday through Friday. Right. And so as I evaluate the program and as we look at the progress that the team is making, we're looking for the indicators that demonstrate that we're moving in the right direction. Are student athletes being developed? Are they being developed on the field, off the field? Are they getting bigger, faster, stronger? Are they achieving the metrics that we expect for them to achieve? Are they learning the system? Are they passionate? Are they playing hard? Are they playing physical? Are they relentless? Are they confident? Those are all, those, and there's several others, but those are the types of things that we'd like to see going into next year. That are they disciplined, right? That we're looking for as foundational pieces to build on for future success. So that with each game, each Saturday, we find ourselves being in better and better position to win games, that we're winning games, that we're doing so consistently, and that we're making our way through a really difficult schedule year in and year out. Like that takes a lot of effort, a lot of grind, and a lot of preparation. And we want to make sure our guys are prepared, make sure they're ready to play, and make sure that they do so consistently.
So we've talked a lot about football, but I want to talk a little bit about the other coach. Over there across the way at the Auburn Arena, Bruce Pearl. Yeah. Now you inherited Bruce, and he's had a lot of success. I think that as fans on the football side, we want to see the development kind of mirror what's been happening in basketball the last 4 or 5 years, right? Competition. Athletes achieving their athletic dream to play pro as well, and then just regularly being kind of in the competition every year. Can you talk about what it's like, what Bruce is like, and the successes that he's been able to accomplish on the basketball court?
Yeah, Bruce is great, right? And he is who he is. So what you see on the court is what you see off the court. What you see in the public eye is what you see behind closed doors. He is who he is. He's an energetic, passionate leader who loves his kids, is an incredible, an unbelievable competitor who wants to make a difference. He's strategic. He knows that he's a really, really good coach, but he also knows that he gets the most out of his players. And that's an advantage that we have that a lot of other programs don't have. And it's been fun to get to know him and his staff and his players, and to watch him build this program and get people excited, right? I mean, people were showing up when they're like, hey, we're probably not going to win, but we're going to go anyway because we want to support BP, we want to support the program. And it's there is no one else like him. I mean, there isn't. And you can try to replicate his energy and his passion, but you can't. Bruce is someone who just has a remarkable ability to connect and get people excited about his vision. And it's been awesome because he rubs off on other people. And so while we all can't be Bruce, we can certainly work to try to do so. And he makes those around him better.
You can go into name and likeness now, Isaac.
Well, actually, I was going to pivot to something else in the athletic department. You know, you talk about the infectious nature of Bruce Pearl. You've been busy, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on. We got a new, we've got some other decisions that you have to make. You recently had to make the decision to replace the women's basketball coach, right? And we've got some other programs that are, by fan standards underperforming. Just talk to me a little bit about like the hectic nature of having to juggle all of those responsibilities at one time. You're babysitting this one program, and then portions of your house being on fire, and how you're trying to figure out and manage all of those situations at once.
So someone asked me, how do you do what you do? And I said, I don't know. It's just a part of, I've been in this industry for 20 plus years almost. And you just do what you do. It's like asking my wife, how does she do what she does?
Right.
When you think about, we have 15 head coaches, right? So here's kind of my approach. We have 21 sports according to the NCAA, but we really have 15 head coaches who we are responsible for and helping support. And they compete year round, right? And in that competition, some of it shows up in the record books and some of it is practice and training and preparing. But there's always something going on, right? And so the lights really don't get turned off. And we're always thinking and processing and evaluating. What I want our fans to know is those of us who show up to work every day are just as competitive, just as passionate, just as disappointed when we don't have success, just as happy when we do. We have to do so a little bit more even keeled, right? We can't let our emotions get the best of us. We have to be disciplined in our passion and our decision making, but thinking through. Baseball, I think, is a prime example where we didn't have the most successful season, and it pains me to sit and watch other teams, go to regionals and the NCAA tournament, and we're sitting at home. So let that be a chip on our shoulder, right? Because we have a fantastic coach in a year that didn't go our way. The sky isn't falling. It's a year that we didn't want to have. But if we don't take advantage of the year that we didn't want to have, then we're not doing our collective responsibility of getting better. Right. So if I'm a student athlete, I'm in the cage already. Right? I'm throwing bullpens. I'm doing something to make my craft better so that I can be a better teammate. And that ought to be the case for every one of our student athletes. There's only one team that gets to raise a championship trophy at the end of the year, right? Only one. Everyone else is disappointed by and large. So how do we put ourselves in position to be more often than not that one team who gets to hoist the trophy? That's where we spend our energy and our time. And if we recognize that a team is making those kind of that progress and that challenge, or not challenge, but that kind of progress, then great. If we happen to fall short, you know what? It stinks. I don't like it. But I know that they're trending in the right direction and that they're maintaining. The most difficult thing to do is to maintain a very high level of success. Yeah. You can get there, right? Getting there is the kind of the easy part. You can be a flash in the pan. But how do you maintain consistent championship caliber success? And that takes more than just a head coach. It takes more than just an AD. I mean, it's alignment all the way up and down in order to do that. And that's what we work and strive for each and every day.
Yeah, and I know we don't want to take up too much of your time. It's just curiosity on my part, really more so than anything else. How do you all manage situations with stellar two-sport athletes, I should say, like in Anthony Schwartz, for instance, recently football and track athlete? Like, how do you, and you know, we've got Schenker, right, who's playing on the baseball team and also a football athlete. So how do you all manage the process, number one, of bringing those athletes into the fold and then kind of divvying up their responsibilities between two different programs? Is the athletic department really involved in that transition process and making sure that athlete's getting the most out of their collegiate career?
Well, playing one sport gets you a lot out of your collegiate career. Playing two, I don't know how they do it. I know a few people who are talented enough and committed enough to do it, because it is a challenge. It's a grind beyond belief. You have to be incredibly disciplined, incredibly structured, and you have to give up a piece of one to have a piece of another. And those aren't easy. We don't get too terribly involved from an administrative perspective. That arrangement is usually between the two head coaches, and making sure and explaining to the student athlete, if you want to do both, you may end up hurting yourself in one, but there's also some value in being able to do both, right? Because you're probably going to be a better athlete. But those types of student athletes, they're few and far between, right? We have 550 student athletes. We have a few, less than a handful that are multi-sport athletes. And we do the best we can to support them academically, support them emotionally, and to allow them to be the best that they can in either sport.
Alan, recently in the news, name and likeness has become a thing for our current student athletes, where they will gain the ability to profit off their name to some extent. Can you talk a little bit about how the athletic department is preparing for that potential change in collegiate athletics?
Yeah, name, image, and likeness is one of the more challenging nuances to our industry that we faced in a long period of time. It's to your point, it is the opportunity for student athletes to make some money off of their name, image, and likeness, which they previously hadn't had the opportunity to do so. So if a student athlete wanted to run a summer camp, right, and the Isaac summer, point guard summer camp, you can do that, right? And your picture and your name can be on it, which was not allowable previously. There are some other nuances to it, but essentially student athletes can work. There's a lot of uncertainty around some of the structure still, and we're still waiting for things to unfold. Each state has the opportunity to introduce bills. I can't remember the numbers, but the state of Alabama has introduced a bill and the governor has signed it. And so come July 1, student athletes will be able to profit off the name, image, and likeness. We don't know what all that entails, but what we have been trying to do is educate our student athletes to the best of our ability with what we know, help them understand and how to increase and improve their marketability, which we've done forever, and just help them identify some of the questions and challenges that we feel like are going to come up. And there's some tricky ones out there. So, for example, if you're an international student and you're here on a student visa, are you allowed to take advantage of name, image, and likeness? Don't know. Or if you make a certain amount of money, Uncle Sam's going to want to cut. So do you have to get an attorney? Should you get an attorney for your contract? Should you get an accountant? Should you get a tax advisor? Like, those are all, this is essentially real world stuff where in some cases student athletes will have the opportunity to start their own business, and their brand is their business. And so there's usually a team then around that business if it's really successful. You have to balance that with your athletic pursuits, with your academic pursuits, with your social pursuits, and find a way to manage all those things very successfully. So we're excited about the opportunity for student athletes, but there's also a lot of uncertainty about where this thing will go and how we best manage it.
Well, Mr. Greene, we really appreciate you joining us today to talk a little bit about Auburn athletics and football and basketball and the things that you have going. I got to say, as a student, a former student, it is a tremendous honor to talk to somebody in your position that's helping really bring to life the things in that Auburn creed. You said a lot today about how, that value system of Auburn matched up with your personal value system, and how you guys are trying to create, mold athletes in that image as well too. So we appreciate you joining us and sharing that vision with us today.
Well, Mike, it's my pleasure. Isaac, thank you for the opportunity. War Eagle.
War Eagle. Well, as always, we are the one and only War Rapport. Please hit like and subscribe if you want more content like this. We are the War Rapport on Twitter and Instagram, TW Rapport on TikTok. Guys, we're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.